Nice. All right, UFC 270 went down Saturday, January 22nd from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. The event was headlined by UFC heavyweight championship unification bout between Francis Ngannou and interim UFC heavyweight champion Ciryl Gane. And Francis Ngannou did the unthinkable and cashed as a plus 135 underdog and at 14-1 odds by a unanimous decision victory. And it was an incredible fight, boring at times, uneventful, crazy eventful. There was a power bomb that was thrown at one point by Francis Ngannou. And then the co-main event, a pretty epic UFC men's flyweight trilogy title bout between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. Figueiredo cashed, plus 170 underdog, recaptures the UFC flyweight belt, and now basically ensures a fourth bout between the two fighters. And I guess basically the other story from the prelims, Raoni Barcelos was the largest favorite on the card, lost a unanimous decision victory to UFC newcomer Victor Henry, who cashed at odds at plus 425. So, yeah, we're going to talk about it all. Me, Liam picks fights, and Lucky Locks. And yeah, let's get into it. First of all, Lucky Locks, how did your betting night go, based just from top to bottom?
Yeah, it was a good night. I came away with a little over 3 units, so can't complain at all. Good night.
Liam, how was your night?
Dude, I made so many good bets tonight, and I still came out in the red because I got a little overconfident on Cody Stamann. So I had 4 units of exposure between the decision line at what I thought was pretty good odds and then the money line. And he gets submitted with basically my favorite choke instantly. So I was like, well, how mad can I be? I'm certainly upset. I'd like the money back, but, it was a beautiful choke. So God bless Saeed Nurmagomedov. Nice finish there. But, yeah, I mean, otherwise made some good bets, including getting the main event right. So, hey, we'll take what we can get. Small loss for me, but still up on the year and ready to keep cracking and taking bookies' heads next week and beyond.
Yeah, this is I've said this before. I've said this a long time on this channel. This is why I love MMA, because just like exactly the words that you just said, sometimes when you lose, and tonight was a perfect example of that, even though I made a tiny little bit of money tonight, but even when you lose, it's like the price of admission, because when you lose, you get awesome fights, or you get to see, crazy finishes, or, you get paid back. It's not like the NFL where you're just like, there's some terrible call and, there's one good catch or something like that. Like, no, it's constant action, and you get like that constant, reward from a sport that is awesome. So that's pretty much what tonight was.
I love this, Al. 100%.
Even when I lost, there was times where I was just like, yeah, the better guy won. It is what it is. And then even times that the other way, it worked the same way. So anyways, the betting favorite tonight went 7-4, but the underdog, because of, Francis and Figueiredo, and then, like I said, Victor Henry, you've made more money tonight flat betting the underdog than you did betting on the favorite. The underdog turned 1.8 units on the money line, and then 6 of the 11 fights went the distance. 6 of the 11 went over the betting total. So all in all, pretty entertaining fight. Like, a lot of people pretty entertaining card. Like, a lot of people were outright just shitting on this card, and it was, I didn't pay for it, but it was worth paying for it if you were going to pay for it. So, I don't do that kind of thing. But yeah, the first fight, not for this, but anyways, the first fight on the main card, and this is exactly what I was just talking about. I had, Trevin Giles in this fight going up against Michael Morales, and Morales picks up the first round victory. Cashes at like a plus. You can get plus money on both sides in this fight, kind of depending on where you looked. You could have got Giles at like plus 105 or Morales at plus 105, and then under 2.5 rounds, cash at around plus 150, and fight goes the distance. No, cash about plus 130. And basically all I can say in this fight, we were talking about it before we started. Giles was pretty much winning this fight until he was losing it. Locks, can you add anything more? You explain it better than I did.
Yeah, I mean, Morales, I had a bet on him at minus 131 here, and that was pretty much the best available odds when I made the bet. And then the market told me to go fuck myself shortly thereafter, but I did get the last laugh. I really like this Morales guy. On the Dana White's Contender Series, he struck me as kind of a special guy. I mean, fought Nikolai Veretennikov there, and I watched a lot of regional shows. I was very familiar with Veretennikov, and is he a mind-blowing prospect? No, but he's a really solid guy, and he's certainly not a guy that you just suplex for fun at the end of a dominant win just to put a bow on it. And Morales did that, man. He's got a 79-inch reach. He's got power in his hands. He's got wrestling, and he's a guy who can do special things, and I just don't really feel that way about Trevin Giles. Like, he's a good boxer. He's a very solid fighter, but he's coming down in weight, coming down and then facing a guy who's like actually bigger than him. And it's just shown a little bit more of the X factor. And Giles, I mean, when he got the takedown, he looked pretty good early. I was like, oh man, this could get a little hairy. And then just that counter right to the face that Morales landed. And then from that moment, the writing was on the wall. It ended shortly thereafter. And I was very happy to see that. I thought the opening line at minus 155 was a pretty good price. And I was happy to get minus 131, but you could have had him at plus money, for God's sake, by the time the fight started. But I'm really happy to see Morales win, not only to cash the bet, but I think it's good for the UFC. I think he could be a guy to watch for the future. So I'm excited to see what's next for him.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that this might be a theme that runs throughout this show, but he's one of those guys that, probably doesn't get paid all that much money, and he's young. So he's one of those guys that you will see come in short notice fight, like type of guy that steps in early, like steps in late. And yeah, keep your eye on this guy, because he's one of those guys that's going to come in on like a short notice replacement and be an underdog and win, because he's that good. And a lot of maybe this might actually be bad for that cause, just because of, he was on a pay-per-view now just out of nowhere, where he was supposed to be on like the third fight of the prelims, and he ended up on the first fight of the pay-per-view. So he probably got a little bit more exposure and some eyeballs. But yeah, look, just keep your eye on him, just because I feel like this, him being young, him being in the Americas, he'll be able to get into one of those short notice Apex fights, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him come in as like a projected underdog and win in like a week's notice, just because, man, he was something special. Okay, so the next fight, this will be you, Liam. Syed Nurmagomedov defeats Cody Stamann just in less than a minute, cashes as a minus 170 favorite. He cashed at plus 850 by sub, plus 3-1 to win inside the distance. And I was on the under here. The under cashed at plus 250, which I thought was just bonkers. Fight goes the distance, no, plus 215. And you kind of talked about it when we started, Liam, but yeah, what did you see here, and what did you have?
Yeah, I just thought that, from everything I had seen from Saeed, he had a little bit of problems when people wrestled him and got on top. I thought that Cody was going to offer some threats in that area of the fight. He kind of was getting stung early, which was a problem, because then he got sloppy on his wrestling entries, which really I haven't seen from him in the past very often. And I think it was a result of getting stung on the feet a little bit before he got in there. But he took one pretty lousy attempt with the head on the outside. And, one of my favorite chokes, if you get a guillotine choke, it's great. But what happens is people that are really good will roll over. They'll like jump over you. They'll just roll to a side, and it becomes very difficult to finish. But that ninja choke kind of makes it so they can pass the guard, they can do whatever, but they're not getting their head back out. So it's a pretty dangerous choke to get stuck in. And, once he was in there, he didn't have an answer. And basically he thought about tapping. He tried to get out. He couldn't get out, and he had to tap. So I was like, well, that's, I don't know how many iterations of this fight play out that way, but credit where it's due. He looked great tonight. So Saeed Nurmagomedov, dangerous guy, nice ninja choke.
Yeah. This is weird. I had a parlay that I was going to make with Saeed Nurmagomedov and Matt Frivola, and at the last second I was just like, I'm not betting Matt Frivola as a -180 favorite in a parlay. I'm just not doing that. So I just got cold feet and didn't bet it at all. So when he won, I was like, oh, nice. And then I was like, wait, I didn't bet this, but I did cash on the under. Locks, what did you see here? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good performance. Coming into the fight, I thought it was a somewhat favorable matchup for Saeed just because he had a really big reach advantage here, and striking at range, kind of his wheelhouse. And I mean, it's not like the guy can't wrestle, but obviously, I think Stamann presented threats in those areas. I just felt like the gap in the striking was pretty big. I didn't end up getting any money down because we haven't seen Saeed in a while, and Stamann is definitely no walk in the park. I wasn't running to the window to back Nurmagomedov at -200 against Stamann, but I thought it was a really solid win for Saeed. Really impressive performance and great finish.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I will kind of say this: the disrespect, the no sell, it was just such a disrespectful reaction of him to just completely no sell. He didn't celebrate at all. Just walked around the cage a bunch of times, gave the head nod, just cold, so cold. It was great. I absolutely loved it. So Saeed Nurmagomedov, if you've bet on him, $100 better that has backed him on the inside the distance prop in every one of his fights. I think he's now had 5 fights. I think 3 by stoppage. If you've backed him on the inside the distance prop on every one of those fights, you're now up $1,143. So the secret isn't really out. This guy has finishing capabilities, and the market seems to not realize that from time to time. And like I said, I got the under, and this is a bantamweight fight with just the crux of my handicapping. A UFC bantamweight fight when you're giving me the under at +250, no, I'm betting the under. So and it worked out. Good fight, but this next fight, I think this fight got fight of the night. I mean, it would be a crime if it. No, definitely the co-main event, but if not that one, this one, just what an absolute war this fight was. Michel Pereira defeats Andre Fialho by unanimous decision, cashes at -260, plus 250, 225 on the decision prop, over 2.5 rounds, cashed at +117. Fight goes to the distance, yes, cashed at +150. And yeah, this was just an absolute war. I had Faye and I had the over in this one. I had Faye in a parlay with Moreno, which we'll get to. So, kind of all for nothing. But either way, this was so entertaining. It was like 2 guys that, went on lunch and decided to have a fist fight. Like, just 2 garbage pail, just unbelievable. Just such a good fight. Liam, what did you think and what did you have on this one?
Yeah, so this one cost me some money too. Fialho was my pick on this fight, and I felt like he was going to have opportunities because he's a crisp boxer and he throws hands and he's not afraid to come forward through damage to throw shots. And like when he lands, he normally does pretty effective damage. I think I undersold a little bit, how big Michel Pereira is and how well he'd be able to take the shots, especially when he was fresh. Man, he's slippery too because he runs away every fucking fight. He gets it, like somehow just runs and stays safe and hangs on in these fights. And I even think he probably won the 3rd round close. It's just like he finds a way to eke it out. He's a very good weasel in that regard. I also thought that Fialho would have better gas here because I've seen him perform better in 2nd and 3rd rounds in the past. And, I think it was in part the short notice nature of the opportunity for him as it presented itself. But I think he's a good fighter and made a good account of himself on short notice. And he'll have some fun fights at the lower level, and we'll see where he goes from here. He's still a young enough guy. And it's kind of shocking how young Michel Pereira is, granted that he looks like he's like in his mid-50s, but God bless him. He looks like he's like a mid-50s like yoga instructor that's completely jacked out of his mind.
Yeah, like with this, like I said, with this being like a Portuguese guy fighting a Brazilian guy, like this was just it just was so blue collar, union fight. Like it was such a good fight, man. Like this is what MMA is. It was so sloppy at times, but just yes. Locks, what did you have anything on this one?
I had this fight to start round 2 in a parlay with a pick for the next pay-per-view 271, which is Casey O'Neill. Nice. And I thought it was a pretty decent spot considering Pereira is a guy who goes to decision a lot, facing a guy who I think is pretty durable and who was going to pressure early. And I just kind of trusted Michel to kind of dance around the outside early. Like Liam mentioned, he'll run away if he gets into trouble. So when he was fresh, I was feeling pretty good that we could get to see round 2 here. Fialho did come forward and try to cut off the cage and throw some heat early, and it honestly did look pretty good. But as Liam mentioned, the gas tank thing, as the fight started to wear on, he wasn't quite as explosive. He didn't really lead as much anymore. He kind of accepted the back foot a little bit at times. I thought Pereira looked really good in the second round, and that crazy front flip kick maneuver. I don't know what that was, but it entertained me when it happened. And yeah, also just touch on the fact that, like you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. Pereira is huge, man. Like, I'm surprised he's able to keep the pace that he does, like looking that big at 170, because he looks really big. But yeah, I mean, Pereira comes in here and does what he's supposed to do against a short notice opponent. So it was a really good fight. Very entertaining. Good way to lead up to the 2 title fights after.
Yeah, I think I feel like I've said this before about him. He has like a little bit of Tony Ferguson to him, or it's kind of fog of war, where he does things that he's not really doing anything, but just to bug you or just to throw your timing off. And then at the same time, he's very elusive. He's very athletic. He's a fun fighter, man. Like there's definitely a reason why they put him in this spot. And I'll say it again, another one of those guys, young enough, probably not getting paid a whole lot of money. So we're going to see him a lot probably. And yeah, don't undersell this guy. Like he is what he is. He's got some weird quirks to him. But basically since what did he, the Tristan Connolly blunder, and then what was it? Diego Sanchez, those two kind of brutal performances. Apart from that, he's looked good. So for him on the decision prop, so he cashed at plus 225 to win by decision, and that's another one, $100 better, who is back Fea to win by decision across his I think 6 fights in the UFC and now 7 since 2019. You're up $500. So he's been a positive EV on the decision prop. It's what he does, and I was shocked to see the over at plus money here. So yeah, that was a sweet one. But this fight ended up getting fight of the night, and what a wild fight. Deiveson Figueiredo pulls off the victory as a plus 170 underdog over Brandon Moreno. Plus 170 on the money line, plus 500 to win by decision. The over 3.5 rounds prop cast at minus 125. Fight goes the distance, yes, at plus 134. Unbelievable fight. Didn't really go the way that I thought it was going to go. Liam, what did you think about it?
Yeah, this fight played out completely like the opposite of the way that I thought it was going to go. I thought Moreno was going to come in confident, but prepared. And I thought that he fought a little bit sloppy, like you were talking about, Al. I thought, in addition, Figgy looked great. I think that it was surprising to me. He is coming into the fight as a 34 years old.
Yep.
As a flyweight, that was a big concern for me. And, the history of these rematches, when the younger champion is taking on the returning, older champion, the younger person wins a vast majority of the time, especially when you increase that age gap, there's a decent age gap between these guys. But, Moreno was a little bit loose with the defense. I thought he was going to proactively grapple and push some advantages there, and he didn't really. And when he tried to, he was, a little bit inefficient in those positions. At times he got him down. He wasn't able to keep him down. So, he ended up paying the price. He got dropped, I think, twice. Maybe even more.
More than that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd have to even revisit the fight. But he was getting sent all over the place.
Yeah, and he almost got finished at the end of the third there. But yeah, go on.
No, I'd have to revisit all these fights, honestly, because I was talking while I was watching them as well. But I think it was a very compelling fight, fun fight. I thought the draw was live as well.
Yeah, me too.
It was a really crazy fight. But I think it was one of the only draws you'll ever see bet down to like plus 3,400 or something on a couple of the books I was looking at. So yeah, it was a great fight, and interested to see where we go from here, because I heard a lot of people talking about they're going to do the fourth fight. I think there'd have to be some wins for Moreno in between. I don't know. I feel like for meritocracy's sake, Askarov should probably just get this fight next, but they're not going to do that. So I don't know what the next fight is going to be. It's an interesting open question here.
Yeah. I don't know. Locks, what did you think about this fight, and what did you have on it?
Yeah. I had no money on a side here. I did have the over 1.5 in a parlay. But yeah, you guys know I'm a Figueiredo fan, so prepare for me to be a little bit biased in this segment. Fair warning. Really good fight, though. I mean, I agree with the scorecards. I thought that Deiveson got the first round, and then third and fifth, he got the knockdown. So I guess you got to chuck those his way as well. I didn't think Moreno really looked bad. If those knockdowns had never occurred, maybe he could have won some of those rounds in the volume, but I felt like Fig probably was, the value side there. I really don't want to see a fourth, the quadrilogy or whatever. I don't want to see it next, to be honest with you. I just don't want to see it. I'd rather just give the winner of Askarov and Kaikar France the shot, kind of like they've been talking about doing. Maybe we do Moreno versus Pantoja 3 in the meantime, and then whoever wins that can be next in line behind them. But yeah, I don't want to see this 4 times in a row. As good as they are, there's just too many times to me. But yeah, I'm super happy to see Fig win here. Really good fight. Got fight of the night, deservingly so. And yeah, it was a wild ride, man.
Yeah, it was so crazy. Some things that I'll say. I thought that Moreno definitely underestimated Figueiredo. I felt that he was wildly overconfident at times in this fight, just like his demeanor. He was swinging for the fences. His boxing, it was so not as sharp and not as like he has this real unique style where he'll like shrug and look for looks, like put his chin out to look for looks. And he was doing that, but he was kind of like doing it as it sounds weird, but like a parody of it. Like he wasn't like fully invested in it. Go back and look at how he was doing it in the first fight. He was leading with his chin, like similar to like how Victor Henry was fighting tonight, just like leading with his chin and drawing the action and countering. And he was doing the pull counters really well with the bottom head movement, like weaving down, but then he wasn't dipping back. So Figueiredo was always catching him. And the thing I'll say about Figueiredo is Moreno was catching him with like the 3s and 4s, whereas Figueiredo was just like catching him with like a big 1-2. Yeah, it was, I don't know. I could feel it was one of those fights where I could just feel the fight was, by the third round, I knew that the fight was like Moreno was letting the fight slip away from him. And yeah, I was pretty, like, anybody who says this fight was a robbery, like on the Moreno side, is just completely nuts, because Figueiredo won the fight. You can make a case that it was close. I would say you'd have more of a case to say that Figueiredo would have got robbed if they gave it to Moreno. But either way, sure. I wouldn't say robbery, though. It was a close fight. I bet
on Moreno, and watching live, I was sure that Figgy won that fight.
But to be completely fair, with just the crowd, and just I just thought there's no way Figueiredo is going to win here. And then sure enough, and I just want to mention Waleed Ismail, the manager of Deiveson Figueiredo, running into the octagon. Just that man is a creature and a half. Just go look at some pictures of that person. He is just an interesting character. Yeah, you know what? I want to see
the
I bet you
staple he runs, brother. You can be honest about it. My goodness.
I don't know how much cocaine was going around tonight with their crew, but Jesus, man, that was a little bit aggressive. But anyways, I'm sure they're good people. But anyways, I want to see Figueiredo Moreno 4, man. How many times do you see a quadrilogy? And I'm not sure if you guys could maybe correct me if I'm missing something. Do they have teams for the next Ultimate Fighter? Because wouldn't that be, Figueiredo Moreno? Isn't that just
villain? Yeah, that's a good call, Almac.
Right? Isn't that just
like it?
One? And then with the storyline, just how it all ties back to Moreno and Cejudo with it doesn't that I can't be the only one that's making this connection. Like, this has to be someone who gets paid a lot more money than I do is pitching this, right? Because I don't know, like Figueiredo Moreno is. I don't think there's ever been a quadrilogy. I know that Hua and Nog fought 4 times, but not all in the UFC. The 4th one was in the UFC, but there's never been 4 fights. I know McGregor and Poirier. Maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe they'll put 2 quadrilogies. Oh, now I'm full of ideas. Yeah, maybe they'll put 2 quadrilogies on the same card.
Let Almac book it.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I want to good for Figueiredo though, and I'm like with you, Locks. The origin of me doing videos on YouTube goes back to him with Figueiredo destroying, just absolutely murdering Benavidez on television.
Oh,
and
man,
that's when
was
I was
awesome,
just
man.
that's when I was just like, this guy is unbelievable.
He's
and then I put
savage.
a small a rent payment on him to beat Alex Perez, and I was just telling my friends it was basically GameStop at that point. I was like, it doesn't matter. He is going to win this fight. I promise you. And a cage grab or 2 later, and he did quite easily. And I gotta say, I was on Figgy in the first fight, and I picked Moreno in the rematch. And but then I picked Moreno in the trilogy. So I don't know. I know that now Figueiredo 10-2-1 since coming into the UFC since 2017, and $100 better who's backed him on just the money line is up $737 in that stretch. So I think that tonight was one of the only times he's ever been an underdog. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen with this guy. It's almost like this is a detriment to his career because now he has to stay at flyweight, right? So it's pretty crazy. Yeah, speaking of crazy, I kind of predicted how this was going to go last week, how he said, everyone thinks that it's going to be Gane by decision or Ngannou by KO. And I said, I'm not going to say that you can get plus money on both sides and go at it, because I know every time I say that I get burned. And sure enough, Francis Ngannou picks up in one of the weirdest heavyweight fights. Yeah, I would say it was the weirdest UFC heavyweight fight I've ever seen. Francis Ngannou picks up the unanimous decision victory over Ciryl Gane, cashing as a plus 135 underdog, 14-1 odds to win by decision. The over 2.5 rounds, I was on that one, cashed at minus 105, and fight goes the distance, yes, cashed at plus 235. So, I explained it last week. I was financially invested in Ciryl Gane with, just discipline. I had a 1 unit wager on Ciryl Gane. I had a 1 unit wager on the over, but my heart was with Francis Ngannou. I wanted to see Francis Ngannou win this fight. Did I think it was going to happen like this? Absolutely not. And I DM'd you guys in our group DM at the very ending of the 3rd round. And I DM'd you guys and I said, guys, he's going to do it. And the fight actually kind of turned right then and there. So I almost jinxed it, but I just unbelievable. Liam, tell me, what did you have on this one? Tell me your thoughts on this just crazy fight.
Yeah, just so everybody who's watching the show doesn't think I'm a complete mark and an idiot and I just get every bet wrong on every fight on this card. I did get one right here on Francis Ngannou. I bet on him in the main event, and I had 2.54 units at plus 130 here on the money line. So I didn't get burnt on that inside the distance trap. Though I did think that was the majority of his win equity. This was kind of like everything had to go right for him to get this pulled off. He didn't really do a lot of damage on top. If I had known about the injury going in, I probably would have been a lot less reticent to bet this outcome. And then, but dude, I see something about it before the event and I'm like puking in my mouth, like with all the money I have on Francis. But then I see that the odds have frozen on some of the books. Like you couldn't even bet Francis Ngannou anymore on FanDuel. They had gotten so much action. It was just locked. Like you just couldn't play it anymore. So I was like, okay,
that's pretty lame.
Yeah, but
interesting is a weird word. Yeah, it's more than interesting. That's unfair.
What I mean is it was open on all these other books, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'm in
I know
a
what you're
legal
saying.
area, so I was able to access him at plus 135 when I'm seeing that they locked it on another book. I'm like, so somebody just dropped a nuke on him over there. I'm gonna keep playing it over here, and it was a little bit sweatier than I would have hoped, but when I wrote my preview this week, I said that I thought it was going to come down to, in part, like one of the X factors was how does Ciryl Gane look on his back and what's he able to do if and when put there? And that was, the defining question of this matchup, which is very little, had no answers there. Francis is a big man. He's heavy. He's hard to get off you, but there wasn't really correct frames and things. Some of the leg lock entries were okay, but I also want to say that earlier this week, I said, the leg lock that he submitted Dante Mays with, people would get out of at my local gym. And that's just like, I see it every day. Training jiu-jitsu, just a modern game. If you're not setting up a leg entanglement with some seriousness, you can get out of it. And Ngannou was literally looking at him, laughing, licking his lips, and then standing back up when he was in that leg lock. He was not in danger as far as I was concerned. So I thought that Francis, pretty systemically out-grappled him over the course of that fight, hit a sweep. Francis Ngannou to hit a sweep was plus 10 million going into that fight, I think. It was just a really beautiful performance by Francis. Flipped the script with one knee. What a guy with so much pressure on his back too. I saw a tweet that said, two rounds down going into this fight, you got no knee and everybody there wants you to lose from your company. It's like, yeah, this is no pressure. My goodness. What a guy.
Yeah, it was definitely poetic. And that's why I was like, last week, I was like, would I like to see that? Oh, yes, I would love to see that because it would be well worth the price of admission, which was my bets that I made. But beyond that, I wasn't trying to, I was just saying FanDuel, you shouldn't be limiting people's bets. If you've taken too big of a bet, move the juice. Don't turn the bet off. That's not cool. In other countries where sports books are regulated properly, you can't do that stuff. That's not cool. So just move the juice. Why are you taking the bet off the board? And then that brings me to another thing. I'll let you talk.
Because they don't set lines, Al.
Yeah,
they
but
pay somebody else to set their lines.
Another thing before I throw it to you, Locks. As much as I absolutely love MMA, how much more of any other sport do you get gypped on injury news? You know, like Joe Rogan just like casually says, "Oh, he's got leg wraps on. That might be a problem." Like what? You know, like how was that not told to us? Like, what if you saw LeBron James in Game 6 of a playoff game and just came out with like a brace on his leg? Oh yeah, so he just happens to have an injury. Like, we need to know that. The bettors need to know that. You can't have information confidential. Like, that's not cool. Like, why weren't we told? And I bet you if the reason that even was allowed was because it was in California, where you can wear knee wraps. If that was in Vegas, he wouldn't have been able to wear the leg wraps. We wouldn't even known that he had an injury until after the fight. So I'm not cool with that. That's pretty I was on Gone, and when I heard Rogan mention it in the middle of him walking out, that he had this potential knee injury, I was just like, well, that makes me a lot more confident on my wager. But we know how that went. Locks, what did you think of this one, this epic title fight?
Very surprising fight, man. I mean, if you told me before the fight that Francis would have 4 out of 5 takedowns and rack 8 minutes of control time, all after round 2, and then win a decision, I would have said you were crazy, man. I had the over 1.5 at -170 to close out a parlay. I also had a quarter unit on Gane unanimous decision at +550. And if you told me this fight went to a decision and I didn't cash that bet, I would be shocked. And I still kind of am, to be honest. But I was honestly happy with the bet. I thought it was probably 2-2 going into round 5. So at +550, I don't really feel badly about that, a quarter unit there. But I mean, imagine what Francis' unanimous decision was playing, man. I should have taken that. And I feel like a lot of people probably might have got burned on this just because they decided to forego the money line and just play Francis inside the distance or knockout. I mean, I know I thought that was pretty much like, I told a bunch of my friends, like, oh yeah, like Francis, like, there's no chance he's going to win a decision. So I'm sure I'll get grilled for that tomorrow morning when everyone wakes up. But yeah, I mean, just really impressed with Ngannou and his ability to break out those takedowns there. Massive guy. And, if he has that in his arsenal now, combined with that ungodly power, could be around for a long, long time at the top of this division. And a lot of people are talking about, if Gane didn't go for the heel hook for so long, maybe the decision goes the other way, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, Gane really couldn't stop those takedowns. I mean, at all. He's pretty much just getting taken down at will, 4 to 5, 80%. And this is a guy who'd never been taken down before. And then include the fact that Ngannou said that he tore his ACL and hurt his MCL 3 weeks ago. Just really, really impressive win. Surprising, but very impressive. And excited to see what's next for both of these guys in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, like just unreal. I got to say, Ferdinand Lopez 100% let his fighter down, just giving him complete nonsense advice, where like Eric Nixick's in the corner, like treating him like a doctor treats his patient, like just like, give me some breaths, okay, good, like giving him such good corner advice, calming him down. And Ferdinand Lopez is just like, Ciryl, you must not lose this fight. You cannot lose. It's impossible. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like that was no wonder Francis Ngannou left, And as much as sometimes I can't stand Cormier, but at one point Cormier was just like, oh my God, Francis Ngannou is doing jiu-jitsu. And that was the highlight of the night for me. And he also mentioned the thing about the Dontel Mays thing, and he said that Francis told him that somebody showed him in the back how to do that, like before the fight, and that's how he and I heard that before, but now that I've seen him how he actually can do jiu-jitsu, I definitely believe that. This dude, like, when in like 5 years when we look back on this fight tonight, this is like miraculous. Like against all odds, he was the underdog. Like the whole company wanted him to lose. Not to mention Dana White didn't come. Dana White didn't put the belt on him, and he didn't come and answer questions about Francis Ngannou, who, if he stays out of his contract until December, the UFC has to invoke the championship clause for Francis Ngannou to come back to the UFC. And that could involve a lawsuit. And the UFC does not want that, because then the details of Francis Ngannou's contract will become public. So this is why last week I was like, remember I said this is a disaster? This is the disaster that's happening. Is, the UFC the MMA media is gonna, like, right now as we're speaking, is turned on Dana White, because the pay, the fighter pay, because it's California, has all been published, and then he just doesn't show up. It's very reminiscent to UFC 220 when Stipe beat Ngannou, and the exact same thing happened. He didn't show up to the press conference. So
the parallels between that fight and this fight were so clear. When I I went through like a career retrospective on both guys, and Gane today was in the position that Ngannou was in when he fought Stipe, which is training in France with Ferdinand Lopez, and came in underprepared, got beat, got embarrassed, got out wrestled, had to come back, learn, sharpen the axe, and then he became the champion, which Ciryl Gane will do one day. He's an excellent fighter, world class. His wrestling wasn't on point tonight. But how many other guys in the division can exploit that? And can, freaking Curtis Blades take all the damage that Ngannou took en route to this, win? I don't think so. Because Ngannou changed him forever. But I think overall, man, what I learned is that Ngannou is a clever guy who's crafty, and his cardio isn't as bad as everybody thought it was. Because we really only had one fight that was the sample size, and it was a long time ago when he wasn't training in the States. So training in the States is a big deal, as far as I'm concerned. Not to say that you can't train other places and do well. Tiger Muay Thai, another great. If you're training there, I'll take the same bait. But I just think that it's one thing to wrestle with people overseas that aren't all Russian, and it's another thing to wrestle with these Americans that are in the trenches every day.
Yeah, I saw Francis Ngannou-Gomedov being thrown out there on Twitter. That was a thing. Something hilarious. This is for me. This is absolutely just nuts. So Francis Ngannou has had 14 UFC fights. If you've bet $100 on him to win by decision in every one of those fights, guess how much money you'd be up tonight? You'd be up $100, because he cashed at plus 1,400 tonight. So that's positive EV. So, the law of diminishing returns sometimes goes the other way, and it's the law of averages. It's eventually going to happen. And I had this like subconscious inkling, no, don't say that. It proves that I've grown, because, like I said, with the Blachowicz Israel Adesanya fight, I was like, there's no way Blachowicz is winning this fight, banging my fist on this channel, and I was wrong. So I'm growing. I'm not going to say ridiculous predictions like there's no way Ngannou's going to win by decision, because look, it happened. So basically I wouldn't be shocked if we don't ever see Francis Ngannou in a UFC cage again. I know that sucks, but I think it's the reality. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw him in one championship. I think that would be a massive like shift in just, I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen, but based on, I don't know if you watched Ngannou's words about, in the press conference, he doesn't sound like he wants to, when he was asked about future opponents and stuff like that, he just shot it down. He wants to do boxing. He's thinking of doing MMA, but when I asked about the UFC, he's just saying, I'm not interested right now at what I'm getting paid. So solidarity to him. Do you guys quickly, just for the sake of it, it's only 3 weeks away. Do you guys quickly want to talk about the main event, UFC 271? Adesanya Whittaker. Do you have any thoughts on that, Liam? Do you have any thoughts on that, Locks? You want to hit that?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I'm a really big Robert Whittaker fan. I'm hoping that he wins, but I just don't know if I can really get around to that side, to be honest. I mean, Adesanya's pretty damn good, and I haven't really looked into this fight too much, but I don't know. I just don't know if I see these guys at 185 right now being able to beat him. I just think he has a lot of guys' numbers in this division. I feel like, he's long, he's big, he's an excellent striker, and I'm just not really sure what Whittaker is going to be able to do to beat him. I mean, I think probably grappling is the natural thing that we're all thinking he's going to need to do, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that and win 3 out of the 5 rounds against Adesanya, because he is tricky to get down with this long frame. So I'm thinking Adesanya early. I'll still have to run the tape, but I'd love to see Robert Whittaker get the win.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm leaning Whittaker here. What do you have any preliminary thoughts on this, Liam?
Yeah, so just taking a look at the lines that are available right now, Robert Whittaker up to plus 230. Adesanya is minus 300. I think that I would also be looking at Whittaker or pass at that point. There's nothing really to be had on the Adesanya money line. Yes, he's probably more likely to win the fight than not, but is he more likely to win it, 80+% of the time? That's sort of what you need there for it to be a value bet. So yeah, it's not really something I'm interested in playing into. I'd have to consider more the dynamics of the fight, see what Whittaker's recent takedown entries have looked like. He has gotten hurt and wobbled in some of his recent fights, which is obviously a concern against somebody like Adesanya, a precise striker. But I also think that Whittaker, he does actually have some wrestling, grappling upside. The Australians, they're not the best wrestlers, but some of them can get down. And I think that he's actually among the best in terms of Australian MMA wrestlers. And I'd be curious to see how he can fare, basically by changing his approach. I think the first time he mentioned this in recent interviews that I've heard, he had an ego-based approach. He wanted to strike with the guy, and he got fucked up. So he's like, okay, I can't strike with the guy. I got to come out here and do something different. And I do think, Jan Blachowicz, it's been proven Jan Blachowicz isn't the world's greatest grappler. He was a lot bigger than him. He took him by surprise, took him down the stretch, and he beat him by grappling him. I'm not sure why Whittaker couldn't implement a similar game plan here, but obviously it's going to take a little bit more of a margin because he's not going to have the size advantage to play with. But he also can, move a little bit faster than Jan Blachowicz, so maybe he can use his speed and some tactics here to get takedown entries.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just, I said this last time when we were talking about the fight that we just watched tonight, and this is how I break down fights. Robert Whittaker. So since the Adesanya fight, he lost to Adesanya, but then came back. Went to Till as a favorite, went to Cannonier as a coin flip, pretty much plus money on both sides, and then another unanimous decision win over Gaslam as a pretty big favorite. The thing that really impresses me about Robert Whittaker, you look at his career, okay, 8-1 in his last 9 fights, the only loss being to Adesanya, but across 9 fights, you're going back to 2016. Rafael Natal, who's not even in the UFC anymore. He's really spanned out. I believe he's a little bit like 8 months or something older than Adesanya. They're about the same age. I feel like Whittaker is. I just think that he's not as. I don't know. I just don't think. Don't sleep on Whittaker. I think that he's not as battle worn as people think he was, as he is. Yes, he had those 2 wars with Yoel Romero, but I mean that was 2017 and 2018. he's only fought 4 times since those wars with Romero. It comes down to this with me. Robert Whittaker, 8-1 in his last 9, 6 of those 8 wins by decision. Adesanya, I believe he's 10-1 in his 11 fights, 6 of those 11 wins by decision. This fight is going to go the distance. I'm pretty sure. That's my call here. I think that this is going to be similar to Adesanya Vettori 2 or Adesanya Vettori 1. I think it's just going to be a slugfest. And if that's the case, if you're giving me plus 220 on Whittaker, like you said, Liam, I don't know necessarily that he's going to win the fight, but he's going to win the fight more times than the odds are indicating. So I'm going to take Whittaker. I'm saying that right now. My money is going to be on Whittaker in this fight because since I bet on Adesanya to win by decision against Yoel Romero, and since then I have not got a fight. I've not got a bet right in a Israel Adesanya fight. So I'm coming out for revenge, and I think Robert Whittaker. I think the value's on Whittaker. I'm not going to say I think he wins, but I think the value's on Whittaker, and I will say I think this fight goes to decision because Whittaker's gone over the betting total in 7 of his last 9. Like I said, 6 of his last 9 have gone the distance. Adesanya, 6 of his 10 wins by decision. He's gone the distance in 7. Even the fight that he lost by decision. I think this one's going to go the distance, and I think that there's some value on that look. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that, Locks?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to go to a decision as well. I think it's going to be closely contested. I think I just see Adesanya probably edging 3 or 4 of the rounds, but that's not a price that I'd be looking to play him at. I might look at Adesanya by decision if that looks good, and just the overs as well. I agree with you. I think that's probably my most confident read early, is that it is going to go to the decision rather than which side is going to have their hand raised at the end of the fight.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident this is going to be a 5-round. Just this is the thing. One of the best videos I've ever seen of anybody break down a fight was Robert Whittaker. Dan Hardy, when he broke down Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till when Whittaker was coming back from the loss to Adesanya, and just the way that he explained, Whittaker, it was very uncharacteristic in the way that he fought that fight and just rushed in with his head down. That's just so uncharacteristic. We've almost, besides Paulo Costa, who pretty much does the exact same thing, we haven't really seen somebody we haven't seen Adesanya do that to somebody, because that's the one thing you don't do. He uses your forward pressure against you. It's the one thing you don't do, and he did it based on what he said, his ego, and just he was so pent up in front of his home crowd. I think it's going to be different. I think this fight's going to be different. He's going to have a way better mentality. Go back and watch Till Whittaker. Like, that fight was awesome, and Whittaker was fighting Till, who has that similar, very feinty style that Adesanya has. And I think that the loss to Adesanya changed Whittaker, and I think that we're going to see a much better fighter. So I'm going with Whittaker. And with that said, I think, UFC 271 is exponentially a better card than UFC 270. Tai Tuivasa versus Derek Lewis. Just absolute banger. And then Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. I'm pretty sure that fight has been booked for like 8 months and hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. So hopefully that happens at some point. Bobby Green, Nasrat Hakparas. That's unreal. Casey O'Neill, Roxanne Modafferi. Before we go, do you guys have any look ahead thoughts for UFC 271? Liam?
That's a card I haven't really gotten a tape very much yet. Looking, just skimming through the card, it looks like there's some fun matchups. Alexander Hernandez as an underdog looks a little bit interesting against Renato Moicano. Got to look into the grappling angle little bit more there because I know he's been submitted in the past, but he's got power on the feet. Moicano normally leaves his head on a platter and gets knocked out. So that seems like something I might be interested in betting into, but I'll take a closer look. When Moicano looks good, he looks so good that you look like an asshole for fading him. But when he looks bad, he looks so bad and gets roasted.
Yeah. And I see also Carlos Olberg versus Fabio Cherant. That has people are going to think that fight's going to be end in the first round and it's going to go the distance. That's my read on that. And then kind of the same Brunson and Cannonier. I think that fight is booked. It's Best Fight Odds has it listed. Yeah. Okay. Well, man, this is a great card compared to this card. Locks, do you have any thoughts on this card?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up that fight. I mean, that's between a guy who I predict his fights right a lot in Jared Cannonier and a guy who I pretty much never do in Derek Brunson. So we'll see which side comes out on top for me. But yeah, I was having a look at that fight. So yeah, it like you said, I think it is a better card than on paper than the one that we saw tonight, and really looking forward to it. Just hoping that it stays together, man. That's the key.
Yo, well, I gotta say, I did not see that Derek Brunson was on the card. I take it all back. I have thoughts that Derek Brunson, Blonde Brunson is coming. I haven't even looked into the matchup yet specifically, but every time he fights, I get fired up and I cash the Derek Brunson by sub plus 2,900 versus Darren Till. So you know that I'm looking there with binoculars for that prop market when they drop it on my man DB. See if they're going to respect him. I bet it at plus 1,400 against Kevin Holland. He put him in a submission for 2.5 minutes and they doubled the price the next time out. Okay, God bless you guys. Thank you.
That's definitely a title eliminator, right? Like whoever wins that is definitely fighting whoever wins in Adesanya Whittaker.
Yeah, I think
100%
kind of alluded to that.
It's got to be Derek Brunson if he wins fucking 12 fights in a row and they don't give him this fucking title shot. I know he lost 1 or 2 in there, but
it's a rematch either way. He lost to Whittaker and he lost to Adesanya in very similar fashion, but to be completely honest, how is Derek Brunson an underdog? A plus 170 underdog. I know that
Cannonier, don't tell them. Yeah. The line's gonna fucking move.
Well,
it happened with Fialho France last time. I'm like, yeah, he's right about that. And then I go to
be honest, yeah, you're right. To be honest, I mean, we don't get too many viewers. By the time that we do this, by the time that when I cut this video, it's like 2 weeks ahead of time. So we kind of, I don't get enough viewers where we're going to move the line. Maybe someday. But that's the beauty of this is I'll cut the video. And when people come and actually watch this, it'll be like 10 days from now. So we can I think Brunson wins. I don't even need to break it down. I think plus 175. More times than not, I think Brunson wins. And the value is just clearly there. Cannonier looked good in his last fight, but he looked beatable. He looked like there were some things that you could do against him, a couple of adjustments that were just not made that I think that if they were made, and Brunson is a different fighter, Blonde Brunson he's a different fighter. So I think, Brunson plus money is 100%. And then, I mean, there's probably going to be a whole bunch of fights that, there's probably going to be, who knows? I'm not even going to I was doomscaping last week and we only had a couple of fights drop off. So I'm not going to do the doomscaping. Who knows? Who knows? And it's Super Bowl weekend that weekend. We haven't really ever, can't remember the last time they've had a UFC pay-per-view on Super Bowl weekend. So that's pretty awesome. But the handle, that's another thing too. The handle, because that it's on Super Bowl weekend, will be huge. Because people will be tying bets. Yeah, that's a thing too. People will be tying bets from the Super Bowl to the UFC. So there'll be a big handle, meaning there'll be a lot of dumb money. So Derek Brunson. All right. So honestly.
Yes, every time you say it, whisper it. So people don't get there too fast. That's all.
All right. So it's 4:45 in the morning. Liam, Locks, Liam, do you have any parting words before we get out of here?
Sure. I just want to say Thank you very much for having me. It's always a great time. You can find my work always at Liam Picks Fights all over the place. I wrote a main event preview once again for Roto Grinders, hit another main event underdog, Francis Ngannou this time. And, I thought I asked a lot of the right questions here. So, proud of the work. The main events have been doing very well for me. Got to clean it up the rest of the way. Cody Stamann, you son of a gun. You cost me so much money. But, we're going to freaking figure it out and get back on the horse and do the same thing that we do every week, attack and have a good time. So cheers to everybody for watching along, and hope you guys had fun. I had a great time, and we'll get back after it and attack the bookies again, hopefully at an earlier time when I'm a little bit more awake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is what it is. This is the beauty of it. We get the rawness of the 4 a.m. right after a loss and whatever else. Locks. Next we got a week off. We also got Bellator and some CFFC next week. Do you have any thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, just kind of the same. Thanks for having me on. Always appreciate it. Always great chopping it up with you guys. You can find me on YouTube, Lucky Locks Picks, Twitter, same thing. And thanks for having me on. It was a good time.
Yeah, definitely a good time. And I think I know I'll do something for Bellator. Depending what happens. I'm going to put out something at some point just with my UFC betting trends I've been meaning to put out. I definitely need to put it out before like the end. I'll put it out before the February 5th card, just like explaining the way that I bet. And it's not really my opinion anymore. It's just the data. And I would like to share that. And I think it needs to be shared. But beyond that, thanks. This card was, it was a lot better than a lot of people thought it would be. And don't count it out. And who knows next time. That it'll be interesting when we see Francis or not Francis Ngannou, when we see like Ciryl Gane versus Stipe for the UFC heavy or the interim heavyweight championship in like 8 months when Francis is held out. So hopefully that train wreck keeps on going and we could just watch. And until then, I'm going to keep stirring the pot until then. Okay. Talk to you later, guys.